event here, and you have been empowering women throughout the county, and really probably throughout the state. You reach people, and I've always believed that you have a purpose. Every one of us has a purpose in life, and I think that one purpose is to empower others, and Chantel is a shining example of that. So thank you for all that you do, Chantel, for this. When she invited me here tonight to be the guest speaker, I was actually a little relieved that she said, I want you to speak about your journey, be personal, and I don't want any politics in it. Well, this is a different angle, but I'm glad to speak about my journey to get to where I am, and also to share from each other. Where have we all been? Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And that's what tonight is really all about. I'm going to bring you back to my 3rd grade class, Mrs. McGuirk. And I remember this. That puts me at about 8 years old at the time. And it was community reading day. And this friendly gentleman came in. He was dressed in a suit, I remember, and he was handing us all out these red pencils. And he sat there, read us a book, didn't really think much of it. Of course, I was 8 years old. But I held on to that pencil for years. And, there's something special about it. Do you know what was embossed on that red pencil? State Representative John Benenda. Yes. And to think now, that recalling that, especially being invited to my first community reading days a couple years back, it really struck me. Hey, wow, to think 20 years ago, I was 8 years old, and that little girl that was given a pencil, who would have ever thought that would happen? And I'm sure he wasn't thinking that either when he was handing me the pencil. But it brings us back here to this journey, to where you are. And I can say a lot has happened in the past 20 years since then. From going from I was the chubby, straight-laced kid in high school who was in every club and volunteering. I went on to college. I think we have a few Worcester State students here with us tonight. Thank you for coming out. I know, for me, my college experience is probably a little different. I went to a small women's college down in Southern Virginia, and I had 99 girls in my graduating class. And within my major, I was an econ and business major. We had 4 girls in our class. So with that, our classes were completely different. They were, over our professor's house, over Mexican food, and his wife was cooking and serving us margaritas. And, I think back on my college days now, which actually doesn't seem that long ago. I can't believe I'm coming up on 10 years. But, thinking back on that, as far as juggling classes and jobs and clubs and, being in that small of a women's school, you have so much support. And they actually breed you to be leaders. And they help you through this, and it's really like a sisterhood there. And that's where I was coming from. But, also looking back on that, you have your party days too, and the days that you made probably the biggest mistakes you could ever make. But, that's where you learn, and I think everyone goes through that period, and that's what college is all about. But going from college, my school is about 3.5 hours south of D.C. So, I was going to the big city. I was going to D.C., I was going to start a job, I was going to, take on the world. And I just took the first job I was offered, which happened to be in a legislative office at a federal government agency. And it was great. I love D.C. There are so many young professionals. But you're getting those first paychecks. And pretty soon you realize they don't get you that far. Once you're starting to pay rent, bought a new car, then your student loans come in, now you're buying new clothes to look professional at work. You're struggling. You're struggling to find yourself. You're just struggling to survive in your early 20s. And, after a few years, I was waitressing at night too, just to keep up. I got a little tired, and I ended up coming and moving back home just to straighten myself out, save some money. I think it's a normal trend that we see now among college students and among women and men in their 20s. But I moved back home, and I started working for a large global construction company. So I went completely from government to private business. And it was a great job. They were grooming me for promotions. I ended up, being able to travel to different conferences across the country. But being there, I was learning a lot. We were working on projects in Afghanistan and in the Middle East, from airways in Guam. It was pretty eye-opening, the perspective there. But I realized quickly that I was wishing my days away. You're sitting at your desk, and you're sitting in your cubicle, and you're just watching the clock. You're like, when's 5 o'clock? When's 5 o'clock? All right, 10 more minutes. And you're packing up your bag, and then pretty soon you're wishing the day away. Then you're wishing the week away. And I realized, geez, I'm just going to end up wishing my whole life away. What do I want to do? Where's my passion? I need to do more than this. I need to make an impact rather than just sitting behind a desk. And that's when I got back into politics. I just found a way. I was volunteering on different campaigns, making friends, meeting new people. And it's funny just how going to one meeting, you meet this one person that knows this person. And I'm sure you've all experienced that from just being involved in Women for Action, how networking can really improve your professional career. And from there, I was able to get a job as a campaign manager. And from a campaign manager, I worked myself to a legislative aide, working at the State House. And so you see this progression that they building off of each other and really establishing myself and really building off this passion I have for helping others, for being involved in government, for trying to change the direction of the state. And then, unfortunately, John Bonenda had announced that he wasn't running anymore and that he would be retiring. So I thought to myself, you know what, maybe this is my opportunity. I can do this. So I'm playing with the numbers and we're doing all this research and data. Like, it's gonna be close. It's gonna be really close. But if I don't do this, I'm gonna regret it for the rest of my life. I need to take a risk. What do I have to lose? And so I went to all my mentors. I went to all my friends in politics that I've met over the few years. And they're like, Kate, no, it's not a good idea. You don't have a good chance of winning. It's such a Democratic district. Nobody knows you. Are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. Because, like I said, I didn't want to regret taking this opportunity. So I made way of the naysayers, and even my boyfriend at the time, actually, he was very supportive to begin with. He's like, yeah, Kate, that's a great idea. And as we get closer and closer, I was building up all this support, ready for my kickoff, and it came the day of my kickoff. He called me, and he's like, Kate, I don't think I can make your kickoff tonight. It's like, I feel like you're stealing my dream. And it was a tough blow, especially hours before when I was going to give the biggest speech of my life. I was so nervous as it was. And I'm like, okay. But it was actually surprising at how quick, you get over something like that when you realize, you know what? That was bad. It was probably going to be toxic. I can move on. I can persevere. I can get over this. And I ended up going to my kickoff. I had speech was a little dicey, I'll tell you. I was probably so nervous. But I gave a speech, had so much support, and the next 6 months or so, I was just out there working hard every day, meeting people, going door to door, and you know the stories you get from going door to door too, and you meet so many people, and well, I'll save some of those stories for another time. but the point being, I worked hard every day. I didn't let anybody tell me that I couldn't do it because I knew what was right. And in the end, I won. So that was a great victory in so many ways. And you know, I look back at the past. That was about 2 years ago now. And I look back at the past 2 years, and I have changed so much. So much, it's incredible. And I have probably soared higher than I have ever been in my life. But at the same time, I have probably crashed lower than I ever thought to be imaginable. You know, I'll bring you to the first day, inauguration day, the State House. Huge day. You're there, you're brought into your seat in the chamber, and you're sitting there in awe. You know, there's all this pomp and circumstance. You're sitting in your seat and you're looking around at the paintings and the murals on the wall, and you have names like Adams and Revere that are just surrounding you. And you can't help but sit there and be like, it's me. How did I get here? You know, like, I'm actually part of this history now. It's just unreal and overwhelming. And, you know, that's where my career really took off. I knew I was in the right spot, and you really never lose sight of that history every time you walk into the chamber. But from there, I felt like I was just kept growing and growing. I was appointed to Ways and Means. I got on healthcare financing, two of the most powerful committees, as a freshman and as a woman. So I was so excited. And, you know, and here I am, you know, 29, 30 years old, and I've reached the highest point. You know, I'm one of 160 people out of 6 million in the entire state that had a chance to achieve this. And I did that. And that's just, to me, very humbling in itself. But as high as I was professionally, you know, in my personal life, I was, you know, they say opposites attract. And in my personal life, it just seemed to be in shambles. I had just come out of a really bad relationship that I was dealing with that had really just taken a toll on me. And I was, you know, just in this place where you're just so low every day, and sometimes you wake up and you just don't think you have the fight in you to keep going. And I realized that I was really losing sight of who I was, you know, and I was really losing part of me. And when I look back and look at all the reasons that I ran and how I was elected, people really elect you because partly of who you are, that they can relate to you. You know, I was the girl next door. I was the one that played softball with your kids. They know my mom, they know my dad, they knew me from going to their door. But when you become elected instantly, you know, you're judged differently. You're no longer the girl next door. I was no longer Kate. I was seeing everyday problems and, you know, the work-life balances that everybody deals with. And, you know, I think that's what some people just don't realize. And, you know, you immediately become part of the solution to now you're part of the problem. And you go through a lot of mischaracterizations as well that you have to deal with, and a lot of mischaracterizations as a woman that you wouldn't have to go through as a man. And that's been very challenging in itself too. But going back to that, I got a phone call, probably early spring, it was in April, from an organization in the Dominican Republic. I had gone down there for a vacation, actually in December, and was really touched by what I saw there, the culture, the people outside of the resorts, and I was in communication with an NGO called Aldeas de Paz, which translates to Peace Villages. And I got a call from them, and they said, Kate, I think you'll be great to come down here. With your background in education, working for kids, I think you can really help turn our organization around and help our school down here. They had a school that they were developing for special needs kids and handicapped kids. And I thought to myself, I'm like, this could be it. When you hit this spot where you don't think you have anywhere to go, life seems to open a door for you. It seems to know what you need and give you a way and give you a path. And so I took this opportunity, immediately said yes. We were just finishing up with the budget and going into what traditionally is a lull in the legislature. So 2 weeks later, I'm on a plane, packed up. I went to the doctors, got all my immunizations. I went down with my mosquito net and bug spray, and I'm ready for this adventure. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I knew it would be good. So I get off the plane, get to the bus, get to my apartment, and staying in this village that's a remote village, probably in the northwest part of the country. And I have my own apartment, so I'm really assembling into the real culture there, and immediately meeting the other volunteers that work for the organization. And I didn't know what I was getting into at this point either. Oh gosh, here I am, 30 years old. I'm down here, but I have all these young kids who are just graduating college, and they're looking for something to do over the summer. But they were great. They're coming from all different backgrounds, from all across the country, and that in itself was a whole cultural experience that I got to experience while I was there too. But immediately started working at the school the next morning, thrown in there, and got to meet the kids. And you're looking at kids who are, they're shunned from the school, like what you would consider the normal school, for having learning disabilities. Most go on, all of them were undiagnosed, but you could imagine that most were autism or some sort of learning disability. But then there were other kids that were there that were so smart. Like there was one boy there with just a limp arm, but he couldn't go to the normal school. Or a girl with braces on her legs. She was the smartest girl there, but they wouldn't give her a chance. And so you're meeting these kids with just a wide range of intellectual ability. And I'm coming up with, my job is to come up with lesson plans to engage them all. And you're looking at kids from 4 years old to, we had some older, I would call them adults, that were 20 years old, but they still come every day. And here I am at night, I don't know Spanish, and I'm Googling, I'm on Pinterest, I'm looking for lesson plans, I'm looking for worksheets, I'm trying to translate from English into Spanish so they can learn colors and numbers and shapes, just fundamental things that we all usually take for granted. And so it was this great first week. I could see this direct impact that was having on the kids, on the organization. And then I get a call from my chief of staff, and tragedy had struck my district. Ron Tarantino, Officer Tarantino, who you may have heard, was killed in the line of duty. And I sat there, oh gosh, this is terrible. He's telling me everything that's going on. I'm getting calls from colleagues saying, home right away. And then I have other, it was actually during a house session, so everyone was together, and I get a call from someone, like I said, they're like, Kate, you need to get on the next plane home. Like, we need you here, like, your community needs you. And then it gets passed to, no, don't worry about it. You don't have to go home. You're doing great work there. What are you going to come home for? To politicize a funeral? Like, that's just absurd. And it was going like devil and angel, and it was just tormenting me, and I was really, I remember just sitting there and crying, like, what do I do? I'm seeing my community come together. They're having candlelit vigils. I'm watching the news, and they're having processions that are right outside my apartment. I actually see my apartment on the news, and I'm in the Dominican. But finally, I get one call, which really touched me. And they're like, Kate, if you knew Officer Tarantino, if you knew Ron, he would want you to stay. So you're doing good work, you're a good person, he wouldn't want you to come home for this. And I really took that to heart and made sure that I spent the rest of the time there, like, being productive. And that really changed things around for me while I was there. So after that week, it was such a tough week, and I think everyone in the organization knew how tough of a week it was for me. It was just an absolute roller coaster of emotion for everyone. But we got over that, and I'll tell you a little bit about the living conditions there. I'm not sure. Have any of you been to the Dominican or?
Yeah.
Okay, I was in Samana.
Okay. That's worse than where I was. I was in Punta Cana.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So I was up in Samana, which is a very underdeveloped village, and there was no hot water, electricity, who knows, and we were having problems with water. I hadn't showered in 3 days. And, when you're showering, you're just finding buckets of water and pouring them over your head. And I'll tell you, there's something to be said about the simple life, though. It really makes a difference. But I remember, so one day I go in and my shower's not even working. So I go downstairs and I talk to the landlord. He says, okay, I'll send my nephew up and to fix it. So here I am. I'm in this apartment, if you even want to call it an apartment. I wish I brought pictures to show you. I just had like a bed on the floor, a little stove top that's hooked up to a kerosene container. But anyway, so I get a knock on the door, and it's the nephew. He comes in, and I bring him in. Now, obviously, he doesn't speak any English. My Spanish is horrible. Well, Duolingo tells me I have a 2% fluent in Spanish. But so I'm showing him, the faucet's not working. He's like, okay, like, I'll be back. Is what I'm thinking. So figure he's going to get a part and coming back. Well, he comes back, and he comes back with 2 mangoes. I'm like, okay, thank you. But at that point, he forces himself into the apartment. And, I actually have a little trouble talking about it, but he's then, like, trying to make a move on me. And I'm pushing him away, and like, no, you need to leave. And he's just laughing and ends up picking me up, throwing me on the bed. And at that point, I just, it's such a blur, when your adrenaline's rushing. And I just remember screaming and hitting him and kicking, and seemed like he was still trying to restrain me, but I somehow got him out the door. And, locked the door, and that was a pretty scary thing to go through when you're alone in this foreign country. And, I got used to the, walking home and you get the and things. Yeah, right. You have to be there to really know. But he ended up being found and arrested, and I'm not sure what happened after that. But, you know, I didn't let that stop me either from my trip. You know, the next morning I was back at school and back working with the kids, and, you know, it's just incredible. I can't even describe the social impact that you can make. You're actually there trying to change a culture. You know, I went around with one young man who I was actually able to hire, and he spoke fluent English and Spanish, and we were going around advertising the school. And we had these, you know, little sheets that basically explain the school, and we're going to supermarkets, we're going to barber shops, we're going everywhere, and kind of explaining what the school is all about. And it was incredible, the amount of people who would say, oh, really? You have a school for that? Well, I have a daughter who's autistic or has a learning or disability, or, oh, I have a friend who has that. And we brought in so many new kids in a few weeks to that school. It was, you know, it was life-changing for me to see that you could actually make that kind of change. And so by the end of my time there, you know, I had really turned into, I don't want to use this term, it was given to me, but I was the mother of all the volunteers. But we had a lot of fun, and they looked up to me. I was a leader to them, and that's where, in any other words, I feel like I got my groove back. And I remember one night sitting there with all the volunteers. It was probably a few days before I was due to come home, and there's this one volunteer, Chris, who he was very close to me. He was working with me all the time and knew everything that I was going through. And he looked at me and he's like, Kate, I think you're ready to go home. And, you know, that I remember that so clearly, and he was right. And at that point, you know, I realized that I'm coming home a better person, a better representative, and just with this clearer perspective of life in general. And that's where I realized that they're both up again. My professional life and my personal life are really together. And you know, that's been part of my journey. And you know, I'm going into another phase here where I'm going to into a new campaign where I'm going to be torn down and, you know, mischaracterized, but I did it once, ready to go through it again, and it won't be the last time either. But, you know, I'm here to do good. I want to lead from the heart, and I look around this room, and I see so many strong women. And I think this path and this journey that we're on is something that all strong women have to go through, all of these struggles. But it's through that journey that we learn our passion and we learn our character and learn to be who we are. And I just want to thank everyone for inviting me here today,